Attorney Lindsey indicated, I am primarily an immigration practitioner. And today I'm happy to share with you guys some information with regards to investor visas. So there's been a lot going on with immigration, and there are certain parts of the business categories, business visas that have been included in some of the immigration bans that we've been seeing. And so I thought it best to not discuss those because those would no longer be available for people to apply just, within the next few months. But one of the things that people can do still is get to be a part of the E1 and E2 business programs. So what is the E1 and E2 business programs? So the E1 and E2 programs are all investor programs. E1 is a treaty trader that is going to be involved in substantial trade, so including trade and services, technology, and other qualifying activities, principally between the United States and the treaty trader's country. Okay, I just want to do a bit of a distinguishment right now. And then the E2 treaty trader, the E2 treaty investor would be a visa for those citizens of a foreign country, and they obviously have an investor treaty with the United States, hence the term treaty trader, investor trader. They develop and direct operations here in the United States of different enterprises. They start businesses and they actually invest in those businesses. All right, so let's just jump right in. The requirements for both the E1 as well as the E2 can be found under Statute 101A15E of the INA, or the Immigration and Nationality Act. You can also find additional guidance under 22 CFR section 41.51 if you're taking notes. So those would be the areas, if you're actually interested in becoming a treaty trader, that you can actually go and look and get some more information with regards to that process. So let's talk a little bit about the requirements, and specifically I'm going to focus on the E2, which is the investor visa, because like I said before, they actually have the same requirements, except for the treaty trader, you have to obviously be coming to do trade. For the investor, you come to the United States to invest in the United States, so to start a business. But like I said, essentially the requirements are the same. The application for the E, it actually would go through either USCIS here locally, or you can go through your own consulate office outside of the United States. At this point in time, we know that the consulate offices throughout the world have been closed due to COVID-19, and that continues to affect people who are trying to get any type of visa outside of the United States. So for those of you who may be thinking about getting the E-visa, it may be something that you want to do within the US here, because those are really the options that you have right now. All right, in most cases, the E2 is approvable with the following documents. You have to provide a DS-160, and these are forms. You have to provide a DS-156E, and it must contain your email address, it must contain your enterprise information, as well as a 5-year business plan, and we'll get into these things a little bit more, but this is just for the introduction, as well as evidence of ownership. So you, as the treaty trader or the treaty investor, must show evidence of ownership of this company. If you are applying for your treaty visa or your investor visa outside of the United States, one good tip is to take a look at the embassy's webpage, because they are going to have specific requirements in terms of the size of the document that you can send them, as well as the amount of pages, how to tab the pages. All that information is actually going to be included on the website for the consulate office. So to avoid getting your case denied or rejected because you have not followed their specifications, it's always a good idea to take a look at that website. All right, so these are the requirements. This slide shows the requirements for the E2 investor visa. And like I said, the requirements are the same, except for the fact that if you're coming as an E1 treaty trader, you'll have to be coming to do trade. If you're coming as an E2 investor, you have to be coming to invest in a business or start your own business. So the requirements are as follows. You have to be a part of the requisite treaty. Your country must be a part of the treaty between the US and whatever country you're coming from. They must have that treaty in existence. The individual or business possesses the nationality of the treaty. So you actually have to be from that country, and you have to show proof that you're from that country. The applicant has invested or is actively investing in the business, which is huge, and we'll talk a little bit more about why that's really big. The enterprise is a real and operating commercial enterprise. So it has to be here in Florida. You know, we have the Department of State and Sunbiz, and you actually have to have your company registered on there. The applicant's investment must be substantial, and we'll talk a little bit about what that means. The investment is more than marginal. The applicant is in a position to develop the enterprise. So you have to have the skills to actually develop the business that you're investing in or that you're beginning here in the United States. And then finally, the applicant intends to depart the United States when the E2 terminates. So you can't stay here forever on an E2 yet. The E2 is actually renewable indefinitely, but you do have to show an intent to depart the United States. All right, so the first requirement is that the requisite treaty exists. And in order to find out if the countries listed have a treaty with the United States that will allow you to go through this process, you can go to the Department of State, and that's that link is provided in the PowerPoint. And here you can see a list of all of the countries that actually have a treaty with the United States. So see right here, it says treaty countries. And then as we go down, we can see what type of treaty each of these countries have. It'll say E2 if it's only E2, or E1 if it's only E1. It would also give you the date that the treaty was entered into by the US and that country. So we can just go down the list, and you'll see that there are several countries. There are one or two that are not on here, but by and large, most of the countries are listed here. You can see there's a long list of countries that actually partake in these treaties. All right, so let me see if I can go back here. Okay, so the next requirement is that the individual or business must possess the nationality of the treaty. So we saw that list of all the treaties before, all the treaty countries before, and you must show proof that you're from one of those countries. That's very easily done by showing your passport or your birth certificate as part of the package that you would prepare, either for the consulate or for the USCIS. And once you have those and they reflect that, you know, I was born in one of these treaty countries, that actually suffices for that requisite. Okay, the next requirement is that the applicant has invested or is actively in the process of investing. So the overarching idea with this is that sometimes people come to the US and they want to invest, but they don't necessarily want to lose that money. The idea behind investing is that the money is at risk. And this is something that I have to make really clear with my clients, because they if their business belly flops, then they don't want to lose the money. But part of this process is that you actually have to invest the money. So you must assess the nature of the investment transaction to determine whether a particular financial arrangement may be considered an investment. And if you want to actually see the definition of what USCIS as well as the consulate offices use for what an investment would be, it's under INA 101A 15E Part 2. The core factors relevant to your analysis of whether an applicant actually has invested or is in the process of investing would surround the source of funds, which is listed secondly. The source of the investment funds may include capital assets, funds from savings. So you actually have to show where you're getting the money from. And it can be from your savings, it can be a gift, it can be an inheritance. They have a laundry list of things that you can actually do. One of the biggest questions I get is, can I borrow this money to invest? And the answer is yes. You can borrow the money as long as the loan is collateralized by one of your assets. So it can be a loan that there is no collateral for. It has to be collateralized, and it has to be collateralized by one of your assets. Most of the times people get these funds from their home. They may take a home equity line of credit back in their home country and use those funds to actually invest. Okay, so the next thing is that the investment must be at risk. And that's also a big thing that the officers will be looking at. The investment must be at risk. So if you're going to invest in a business, you can't necessarily keep the money in your bank account and say, okay, this is the money I have to invest in my business. You actually have to go out and buy the necessary infrastructure and materials and equipment for your business. So whether you're a hairdresser or you're starting an accounting firm, whatever equipment you actually need for that business, you have to go in and take the funds and apply it to whatever you need to get, whether it might be a warehouse or some sort of material, stocks. You actually need to take the money and go get that stuff. So the next point of the funds must be irrevocably committed kind of goes hand in hand to the risk, because the funds have to have been spent. They must be gone. They must be committed to whatever that business investment is. So one of the best ways I advise clients to do this is, get property. So if you're doing an E2 visa, an investor's visa, and you're starting your business, buy a property. Indebtedness in terms of a mortgage is a great way to show that your funds have been committed. And just as a tip, this is also an investment that you can sell at the end of it all. You can sell, you can turn around and actually sell that property. So that's always a good idea. The payments for lease or rents as an investment is also something that they look at. The value of the goods or equipment invested has to be proportional with the business that you're trying to run. So for example, if you are, let's use the hairdresser again. If you are a hairdresser, your equipment and your goods are going to look very different to if you are an accountant. As a hairdresser, you have to get, it's really practical. You have to get hair dryers and you have to have your station, your salon set up. Whereas someone who is an accountant, they may only need to have an office set up, and then they have whatever accounting software. So the value of the goods that you're actually investing in must be in line with the business that you're trying to operate, because that's something else that they look at. And then intangible property. Rights to intangible property or intellectual property may also be considered capital assets to the extent to which their value can be reasonably determined. Where no market value is available for a copyright or a patent, the value of the current publishing or manufacturing contracts generated by the asset may be used. So if you are a company that has intangible assets like intellectual property, you have to be able to determine what the value of that property, intellectual property is. If there is nothing that exists to provide some sort of valuation, then you have to seek a market opinion to get the value from experts in that field. Moving on, the next requirement that we're going to look at is that the enterprise is a real and operating commercial enterprise. So what does that mean? I mentioned before that we do have here in Florida the Sunbiz network, Sunbiz website, where you can actually go and take a look at every business that's been incorporated or operates here in Florida. So the enterprise must be a real and active commercial or entrepreneurial enterprise. The investment relates to a new enterprise. If the investment relates to a new enterprise, then you must convince the officers that it's real and that it's actually active. So sometimes people would create a shell of a business and they may not be doing advertising or hire employees. This enterprise for E2 investors, it actually has to be an enterprise that is real and operational. So everything that you would do for a business to get it up and running, as far as, like I said, incorporating to having your EIN number, and all of your licenses that you need to have to run your business, they would actually have to be up and running and relevant at the point in time where you start your business. So one question that I get with regards to having this done, a lot of immigrants want to know, well, if I am not yet approved for this visa, how is it that I am actually going to run the business? And a simple response is that you actually need to hire people, which is part of running a business. So part of the E2 process is the hiring process. So in order to start your business and start it running, you want to hire a manager or somebody else who can run the business while your application is being processed. Okay, so the applicant's investment must be substantial. All right, and usually with this question, people ask, well, you know, what is substantial? How are they going to interpret what substantial is? The general purpose behind the substantial requirement, and just so that you know what the officers will be looking for, is to ensure that a reasonable amount of money is invested in the business, and that there isn't, you know, there isn't like the investment isn't speculative. So people ask, well, what is the dollar amount? Is there a specific dollar amount that makes it substantial? And unfortunately, the answer is no. There is no dollar amount that constitutes a minimum amount for your investment to be considered to be substantial. And a substantial investment is one that is proportional and one that makes sense. as determined through the application of the proportionality test, which we'll talk about. But if you just think about it, again, I'll go back to the hairdresser as well as the accountant. If you think about it, what is substantial for a hairdresser to invest for getting their business up and running would be different to what is substantial for an accountant to get their business up and running. And the officer will just kind of look at, well, is this investment enough to fund this business? I think that's really the bottom line of what they'll look at it. Is it sufficient to ensure that the investor's financial commitment to the business will ensure success of the enterprise? So are you investing enough money to ensure success of the enterprise? So the proportionality test determines whether an investment is substantial by weighing the amount of qualifying funds invested against the cost of the business. So like I said, what does it cost to run this business? I think that's the question that you have to ask yourself. What does it cost to run this business? And am I investing enough money based on what that costs to run a business of that sort, like a hairdresser's salon? You know, am I investing enough for that? So the investor's commitment is something else that they look at. And you can actually prove your commitment to your business by supporting letters. You can get letters from your chambers of commerce if you're involved in different chambers of commerce or organizations. You can get your bank to provide unaudited statements, or your accountant to provide an audited financial statement showing the amount of money you actually have invested in the bank or in different types of investment vehicles specifically for your business. Okay, so another point as far as the requirements to have your case approved is that the investment is more than marginal. And when they look at the investment being more than marginal, the question really is this investment going to generate enough money not only to support the family of the investor, but also for hiring employees, and you know, it's just able to support a whole nother family or a couple families based on the employees that you have, based on employees that you have hired. So a marginal enterprise is an enterprise that does not have the future capacity to generate enough income to provide more than a minimal living for the treaty investor and his or her family. And if they find that your enterprise does not have the ability, either present or in the future, because sometimes even though you have a new company, they may look at it in the future as you present your 5-year business plan. They'll look at it in the future and see, okay, well, this company may be able to generate enough funds, enough revenue to support more than just this investor. Okay, so the applicant is in a position to develop and direct the enterprise. This is another requirement. Controlling interest. So the applicant or the treaty investor must have controlling interest in the company. For treaty investor purposes, the treaty investor must have at least 50% control. Sometimes people come from different countries and they invest in businesses that are already existing. If that's the case where you're investing in a business that already exists, then whoever you're purchasing, you know, you're basically buying shares or buying ownership rights in this business, they have to agree to a 50% buyout. Otherwise, you would not qualify for the E2 investor visa. So you must be able to show controlling interest. At least 50% must be owned by the applicant or the investor. This is found under INA 101A 15E Part 2. And then also the owner must be able to demonstrate development and direction of the enterprise. So you not only need to have controlling interest, but the owner needs to show that they have the ability to direct and develop the enterprise. And that is something that goes to, well, what are your skills? What is your educational background? Part of the package that you want to include with your E2 investor visa application is your resume, your curriculum vitae. What have you done? Have you already owned a business like this? Is this something that you're able to easily develop and direct? Another thing that you want to consider is sometimes people change status when they're here in the United States. So they may be on a student visa and they want to start a business. Well, if you're on a student visa and you're in school, you don't necessarily have the time to develop and direct an enterprise because you're in school. So practical things like that, the officers will actually be looking at to determine whether or not you would be able to direct this enterprise. The visa holder is an employee of the enterprise, obviously, I think that goes without saying, and controlled by management. So finally, you must be able to control this venture. Most modern businesses practices constantly introduce new business systems. It's difficult to list all of the qualifying structures, but if you as the investor has control of the business through managerial control, which is what they're getting at, the control of the business, you must be part of the management of the business. You would have satisfied this requirement if you can show that you are high-level management or you have employees below you who you're able to direct and control. Finally, the last requirement is that the applicant shows that they have an intent to depart the United States. So this goes to the intent. What is your intent once your E2 visa has terminated? Some E2 visa holders, depending on where you actually get your approval for your application, are given 5 years, up to 5 years. Some people are given 2 years. So once that time is up, what are you going to do? The E2 visa is not one of those immigrant visas that would allow you to come and stay in the United States indefinitely. While your E2 visa is renewable indefinitely, as long as you qualify based on the requirements and your business is doing well, you can renew your E2 visa. However, it does not allow you to get a green card or become a US citizen. It's a non-immigrant visa. So in order to show that you will indeed leave the United States once your visa is up, you would have to show ties to your home country. And these are very easily shown by having a business there. Maybe you had a business there and you brought it here and it still operates in both countries. So you have a business there, your family, you have property there, or any other type of assets or ties to the home country would help to show that you do have the intent to depart once your E2 visa terminates. One thing that I will say that I've seen a lot of people actually do in terms of their E2 visa, because some people want to come and they want to stay, they take the opportunity to grow their business. And once their business grows, they move from being an E2 visa holder to an EB5 visa holder, which the EB5 allows you to get a green card. The investment for it is upwards of $980,000. So it's a lot of money to actually invest in the EB5. And that's why most investors who come, they start on the E2 track, which, as we mentioned before, the investment could be a lot lower. And then once you grow your business, you move to the EB-5 status. So those are the general requirements to become an E2 visa holder. Obviously, you have to have all of your business requirements done in terms of establishing your incorporated company or your LLC, whatever type of business it is that you're starting or investing in. The documentation would have to show that you actually have a legitimate company. Now, I just want to open up for any questions that you guys may have based on the presentation.
Thank you very much, Jamila. Your presentation was very informative. There are a few questions. The first question is, does the type of business structure affect the E2 visa? For example, the LLC versus the sole proprietorship?
Okay, does the type of business affect the E2 visa? Was that the question?
Yes. Does the type of business structure affect the E2 visa? For example, the LLC versus sole proprietorship?
Right. Most of the E2 visas, they tend to be corporations, not so much a sole proprietorship. Now, I wouldn't say that you can't qualify for an E2 visa as a sole proprietorship. I would probably suggest that you do maybe like an S Corp, just basically for that protection. But most of them are either C Corps or they tend to be LLCs.
Okay. The next question is, does the commercial enterprise have to have a certain amount of employees, revenue, etc., to qualify for the E2 visa?
Okay, so that question depends on, or the answer to that question depends on whether you are investing in an existing company or if you are developing a new company. So if you're investing in an existing company, I would say that you probably want to choose a company that is well established. They have employees, they can show revenue, they can show growth over the years. If you are a new investor, it's a new business, then you have a 5-year plan that they look at. They obviously know that you're not going to have revenue for the last 3 years. But at the point in time when you invest, you definitely want to have your 5-year plan showing your projections. Additionally, you want to have the business at least up and running, so you can show the business is running and we have employees. Employees tend to be key in terms of what the officers look for. They actually want to see a business with employees there. So I hope that answers that.
Yes, that makes sense. The next question is dual citizenship an issue when proving citizenship of a country that is part of the treaty?
Dual citizenship is not an issue, but you have to pick one. So let's say you're a member of or a citizen of 2 countries that are in the treaty. Now, for some reason, I haven't really seen that set of facts. Usually one country is and one country isn't, so it becomes really obvious which country they actually want to say they're from, because they won't be able to qualify under the other country. So dual citizenship is not an issue. You just have to pick one.
Okay, thank you. The next question is regarding intangible property. You mentioned copyright and patents. Are trademarks also included?
Yeah, trademarks, any type of intangible property that you have will be included as an asset. Definitely trademarks, copyrights, all of the above. I think the biggest challenge with that is actually the valuation. So companies that have goodwill, all of these are intangible assets, but you have to now show, okay, this is what the value is if you want to include it in your package. So
great.
Yeah, it will be included.
Okay. Following that question is, if investing in a business that already exists, is the E2 process a lot faster?
I would say the E2 process, yeah, for an existing business, not because of the fact that you get to the embassy or you get to you send your stuff to USCIS and they process it faster, but it's faster in terms of you don't have to then go and establish a business. The business is already established. You don't have to, all the documentation should already be there. It'll just be an exercise of actually accessing the information. You know, you don't have to go get an EIN. So all these things save time, yes. So it definitely cuts down on the time in terms of developing the business and showing that it's an active, real business. When it gets to the consulate or to USCIS, the processing time just is what the processing time is. Some countries, you know, I've seen a turnaround like in a couple of weeks, they'll get back to you, which is really fast. So some countries are fast, some countries are not so fast, but just in terms of choosing whether you want to to invest in a already established business or one that's developing, the processing time at the point where you get before the officer is not affected by that. But just in terms of gathering, it's a lot of documents. So just in terms of gathering that load of documents, it would be a lot easier if you're already an established business, because those should be things that you already have.
That makes sense. The next question is, what type of IP experts can provide value of the intellectual property as far as the copyright, patent, and trademark are concerned?
When you say IP experts, what do you mean?
I believe as far as who can tell you what the value should be for the intangible property if you need to receive the valuation.
Gotcha. You know, I actually have never had to value intellectual property, but I would assume when they talk about the experts in the field, whoever, let me see, like if you own the rights, you know, copyrights to a song or to some sort of written piece, I would assume that there are people who can tell you, okay, this is what your projected sales are going to be, and they base it off of that. Maybe just whoever would be considered an expert in the industry. I don't have like an expert IP evaluator just yet, you know, maybe I'll get one of them. But yeah, I think you probably just have to look for someone who would be considered an expert in that field. This is what they do. Kind of like we find expert witnesses sometimes if we need to have one at trial and have them to evaluate it. But that's something that I probably want to look into.
Okay, and the last question is, what if your business was negatively impacted by COVID-19? Will that be taken into consideration when they're looking at your E2 application regarding whether your business is deemed real and active?
So that's a really, really good question. And I think that a lot of the things that have to do with, a lot of the issues that have to do with COVID-19 are really novel because it's so new. The embassies are closed, so they haven't been processing these types of cases at the embassies because they're closed, okay? I think that I could see USCIS actually saying you're an investor. If you think about it, right? You're an investor, you're coming to the US to invest. You need to have the money to invest. I think for businesses that are already here and they are E2 businesses and they're now looking to renew their E2, they probably will have more of a leg up to say, okay, well, we were here, and they can show a history of our business was doing well up until COVID. Then I think that those considerations, probably they'll take those into consideration at that point. But for new businesses, I don't think that they would probably extend that grace to new businesses, maybe to existing businesses that are trying to renew their ease.
Thank you. Now, how can someone get in contact with you if they need your services?
That's good. I should have had a slide up saying that. So do you just want me to give my number, my website? What's
Sure. All of it, all of the above.
All right. So my number is 813, this is the number to my office, 813-279-1140. My office, I have an office we're in Tampa, and immigration is federal, so I do deal with clients from basically all over the world. We can deal with clients from each state as well. My website address is www.littlelaw, that's LITTLELAWPA.com. And you can actually get on there and set up your own appointments, or shoot us over a quick email. I'm also on social media at Little Law PA on all the social media platforms. So Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, you can actually search for me on there and send a message. I think the best way is probably via email, so my website, and just sending a message from the website or calling us.
Well, thank you once again. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And thank you all for attending. We do have a webinar coming up on the 29th regarding business and credit. And you all stay safe and healthy. Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you again.
Thank you.